Hello, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me on another of my monologues. As you can see, I've got a very nice slimline pipe today I'm going to smoke whilst I chat to you. And I know sometimes this can annoy people, me smoking a pipe, but I enjoy it and you don't have to watch. I guess that's the bottom line, isn't it? And I say that because I had a fascinating letter the other day. I say letter, I had basically 2 lines on a stapled to a piece of paper that came through the post to my address anonymously. Says a lot, doesn't it, when you get something that reads a little bit like one of those old-fashioned kidnapped ransom notes that you used to get where people cut things out of the newspaper and stick it on, basically telling me, instructing me not to slurp or smoke my pipe in the videos. It comes to that. And you do think, I mean, it made me smile that someone, not only that, did they place, this is nothing to do with the subject that we're talking about, but not only that, they put on a first-class stamp plus 2 tuppenny stamps on, as if the first-class stamp for this one sheet of paper was not enough, that they had to put an extra couple. If it was you watching, I hope you don't feel too insulted, but you made me smile. You made me smile. An anonymous letter telling me not to smoke and slurp my pipe. They didn't like me slurping my tea, rather, and puffing the pipe. So I thought, I haven't got a cup of tea, so you're lucky today. So we're only halfway there. It just made me smile. Anyway, the question I want to ask today is, who owns the land? Who owns it? Who owns the land that we live in, or on, or upon? I was sent a petition. Anybody who watches my shows will know that in the great awakening that I have gone, the journey that I've gone down, I've realised the foolhardy nature of petitions. Did we not see a petition recently in which 3 million people decided they didn't like Mr. Starmer as the Prime Minister? They all took part, by the way. They all took part in the lottery and they didn't like the prize, yet they all took part. But they didn't like Mr. Starmer because he seemed to be, going back on the things that he said he would do and was implementing things that just seemed incredibly unfair. Now, I understand that point of view. I'm not a fan of him myself. I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for anybody. I didn't participate in that lottery. I didn't say, oh, I agree to the rules of the lottery, and therefore if the best man, however that comes about, whether fraudulently, whether genuinely, whatever, I didn't take part in that ridiculous thing that gives you the impression that you can actually change history or have any part in it. The whole voting thing is a complete illusion that people go through because they think it will make a difference. And of course, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government still get in. Anyway, a petition went ahead for him. 3 million people signed it. That's quite a lot of people, isn't it? And yet, if I remember rightly, and I haven't checked, he's still there. He's still there. It didn't make a blind bit of difference. So that's my attitude with petitions. However, so this is a petition, and I said to the chap who sent it to me, I would mention it because there are people that still think that these things do have some place. The only thing that I think it is useful for is building awareness to a problem. That actually, the problem itself is they've already known, what's going to happen. So let me tell you a little bit about it briefly. It is for a bunch of people who live in the countryside, just outside Horsham in West Sussex, and they lived there, they bought their houses, they've invested in their houses, they live very nicely, presumably, as most people do, hopefully do, and they've got nice views, and there's countryside, there's wildlife, and there's all those things. which, you know, when you buy a house, and especially if you buy it in the countryside, you're buying into that environment, you're protecting the environment, you're looking after it as best you can. And like we have seen up and down the countryside, lots of places now are finding that landowners, in inverted commas, have decided that they can either make a fat profit or sell out to these venture capitalists, these new ways of making money. Instead of farming, instead of having pasture, instead of having sheep or cows or cattle or whatever on the land, they've realized, oh, we can make a fast buck here, and we'll have solar panels all over the place. And I've talked about this on the show many times. So these guys have alerted me, and I used to live in Horsham. I know the area. I'm not in favour of solar panels. I think it's absolutely abhorrent. This is in Loxford and Wisborough Green area, just north and never eat shredded wheat, and west of Horsham, northwest of Horsham, in West Sussex, which has been blighted, let me tell you. West Sussex has been blighted with new builds all over the blooming place, as indeed as Sussex and, well, many other counties up and down the land, with these insistent to build these rabbit hutches of new builds, and it's just awful. And then on top of that, they're going to have solar panels all around them, blighting the countryside, killing off wildlife, decimating everything. Probably more than decimating, probably obliterating is a better word. Decimate only means 10%. So anyway, so they got in touch and they said, Richard, could you mention our petition? We managed to get a petition. And as I looked this morning, there's 130 not subscribers, petitioners, and they'll take this. Now, to me, petition is effectively begging. It's a begging. You're going to the, and I've spoken about this many times, of course, you're going to the authority who has given permission, as it were, to these people and said, please, sir, can I have some more? Can I have no more? I don't want any of this. A petition is just saying, I don't want it. It doesn't carry any authority, really, because all these people who sign the petition are on the electoral roll. They've all agreed to be governed by government. They've all said, yes, you are the authority over us. We'll play the lottery that I mentioned at the beginning. We'll get ourselves on the electoral roll with the illusion that we can change things, not realising actually it makes no difference whatsoever. And actually you become commoners by signing up to the electoral roll. You become commoners governed by the House of Commons. The House of Commons looks after the governors and looks down on them. And then these commoners come up and wave their bit of paper and say, we've got 130 people, we'd rather you didn't do this. Well, clearly the authority has looked at the site and said, no, there's no problem there. We'll have 100 acres of solar panels on there. And yes, I'm sure there will be a bit of a stink from the people who live round it, but we don't care about them because they're all on the electoral roll and they're all commoners, and it doesn't really matter what they say and do. We will railroad this through. This does seem to be what goes on. So I asked the question, by the way, links in the description if you want to support them, if you live in that area or you believe in petitions and what have you. And I said I would put it in, but I also have to, I have to give you my 10 pence worth or 20 pence worth of my pipe smoking. Of my opinion. Particularly noisy pipe, this one. I chose it deliberately. You might say, oh, Richard, you are such a meanie. So the question is, who owns the land? Well, it depends whether you live on the land or whether you live on the earth. You see, these venture capitalists, these people who want to put these solar panels, these wind farms and do anything like this, these are big corporations. Now, many people understand that legal fictions and corporations are the same thing, and that in the world of commerce, which is what these guys are dealing in, is they have to deal with commerce is like for like. You cannot have corporation having any contracts or anything to do with real living men and women. We know this, we've discussed this so many times, but it's also, in my humble opinion, true when it comes to corporations and land. So is it land or is it the earth? You see, if you look at it this way, and don't get confused with any sense that this is an organised religion or anything like that, but if you look at it this way, God, let's just use God as a term. It could be the source, it could be the universe, it could be the creator, it doesn't really matter, but let's just use God because it's sort of a universal word and understood in some fashion, although it's not a helpful word because everybody has a different interpretation of what God is, but I'm going to use God. Plus the fact it's in the government's law book. They accept the law book of the Bible, the King James 1611 Bible. And we know that because it's evidenced that the king takes an oath to God to serve the people and keep up with the traditions when he's coronated in a white wine sauce. And he takes this, he takes his oath. Why does a king who supposedly is the top man take an oath to God to say, yes, I promise to look after everybody and all the rest of it, if God, in his mind and in the government's mind, which is below him, doesn't exist? Why would he bother to do that? Why would you take an oath to a deity that actually you don't believe in and has no relevance whatsoever? Clearly has a relevance because they have prayers at the beginning of the every day for the House of Commons. The judges take an oath to God. The MPs, ministers, aren't they? Interesting word, isn't it? Take their allegiance to the king, and the king takes his to God. If God didn't matter, and the Bible, which is given to him at the coronation, he was given a red Bible, interesting colour, but he is given a Bible, and he wears two hats. He wears the Edward I hat, and he also wears the whatever other hat is, the Roman hat, and he wears two roles. So God matters to the king and to his government. It is the final authority. People just don't seem to want to accept this or understand it for some reason. So if God matters, and we look in the Bible, and pretty much all Bibles sort of agree on this one point, God created the heaven and earth. God created the earth. So whose land is it? Well, if God created the earth, it's his land, isn't it? And so even the landowners whose fields they feel they own, they don't own it at all. They own a title. They own a bit of paper that says they own some land. But really what they own is a point on a map, which is defined by postcode, which is a military thing, I understand. So when you analyse it that way, you realise, it's very nice this pipe, by the way, noisy, I grant you, upsets people, but you realise that actually they want to put these solar panels, because they're a corporation, they can only deal with maps and references on maps. They want to put them on a map, but because people will petition and all this and on the electoral roll, they get confused, and so when the diggers and the builders and whatever, and they start shoving it on the land, on the earth itself, people kind of go, oh, it was a fait accompli, we have no power. But actually, if they remind these people, hold on a second, you can't put it here. You can't put it here. This isn't a map. This is the earth. They need to reclaim the earth and say, you can't put it here. This is the earth. This isn't a map reference, just as people, when they write their addresses and they say, oh yes, I live at 32 Acacia Avenue, TN4 92B, whatever that is, they're giving away that they live on a map reference rather than on the actual earth. If you were to describe to somebody back in the old days where you used to live, you'd say things like, oh yeah, I live down at the bottom of the valley next to the big oak tree by the river. That would be your address. That would be how you would tell people. You wouldn't be going, oh yes, it's 32 Acacia Avenue in this district in this town, in this district, in this county, at this map reference, because you're describing a place on a map, not a real place. Down in the valley by the oak tree near the river is a far better description that describes a real place. Place being an interesting word, because you'll remember in the House of Commons, whenever they talk about the House of Lords, they always refer to it as the other place. Anyway, if you want to support them on their thing, I'll put the link in the description. If you live in Horsham or Sussex, or just in general you think that they shouldn't put these things up and you think that begging is the way forward, then I'll leave that up there. I know this might sound a bit callous, and I don't mean to be callous, because I totally disagree with what they're doing. But we do have to reclaim the earth, and we do have to sort of say, hold on a second, this isn't your land, this isn't your stuff, you're just talking about references on a thing. Who owns it? And can you provide me proof that you own the land? Have you got a receipt from God to say that God sold you the land? Because if you have, then that's great, but I'd like you to evidence that that is actually from God, because nobody owns anything. The Creator owns it all, and we're only here as temporary lodgers. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've got something out of this. I'm not quite sure what I was on about, but I'm going to go back and smoke my pipe, much to the enjoyment of my correspondent who over-stamped the envelope. Thank you. Till next time, goodbye.